Welcome back to the Jungle Fever podcast, off-season edition. I am Ethan Sargent. Aiden Crowley is here with me. We are now into the divisional round of the postseason. There are no more AFC North teams involved. We saw the Steelers get pantsed on national television last night. That was fun. I enjoyed that.
It's their yearly tradition at this point.
Yep, the standard is the standard, and it continues in Pittsburgh. Two AFC North coaches are no longer head coaches. Kevin Stefanski's out in Cleveland. John Harbaugh is out in Baltimore. I think that was the more surprising of the two. Um, could potentially Mike Tomlin be out in Pittsburgh? I don't know. Probably not. But as of right now, is it a wild thing to say that Zach Taylor might be the most secure head coach in the AFC North, which is a
He
crazy
is.
statement to make, but it might be a true one, depending on how you feel about that. Um, of course, we had a very interesting press conference on Friday. We talked about it last week. We're going to break that down. Duke Tobin had some thoughts. To his credit, he sat on that podium for pretty much an hour.
It was an
It
hour and 3 minutes.
took a lot of questions, some much more pointed than others. We're going to break that down. We're going to kind of look and just mention the division. We're going to zoom out a little bit, talk about where the AFC North heads into 2026 at, right? All these teams in very different spots right now. It's kind of in a weird spot where I'm not sure if any of these teams are Super Bowl contenders heading into 2026. It's a fair question to ask. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll cap the episode by talking a little bit about what we're looking for here as we head towards February, March, and April. Combine coming up next month, and then as the pre-draft process gets going, and then as we roll into mid-April or late April when we get the 2026 NFL draft, which is in Pittsburgh this year. Let's start out with Mr. Tobin, shall we? Let's start off with this press conference. I'll kind of just give you the floor here. I'll let you have your thoughts. There's a lot to digest. Again, it was long. As we kind of talk about when we talk about these interviews, I encourage everybody to watch this on their own. Whether you watched it on Friday or whether you're just hearing about it now, I would go, maybe watch it on two times speed, speed it up a little bit. But I would definitely encourage you to go watch that because it is a very intriguing 63 minutes of football perspective and knowledge. But yeah, Aiden, what'd you think about Mr. Tobin and his comments on Friday?
Yeah, I think it went pretty much exactly how I thought it would go. There was nothing out of left field that surprised me. He stuck to his guns, and talked about a lot of the things I thought he was going to talk about. He got a lot of the questions I thought he was going to get. Um, for me, the part that frustrated me the most, and let me try to put this in a constructive manner. The thesis of his conversation was he understands and recognizes that there are problems, which was good to hear. That was good to hear. I think that's pretty obvious, but there are some times in the past where it feels like the Bengals turn a blind eye to a lot of the problems that they have. So
Just
the
putting Duke up there was a
yeah,
start, right?
yeah. The recognition was the problem. However, his solutions were just non-existent. And I get it as, de facto GM, if you want to put it that way. He's not going to lay out a roadmap of what the Bengals are going to do. That's not what we're really interested in that conversation. But an idea of where you want to go is, I think, what a lot of Bengals fans were looking forward to. And he
Mhm.
wouldn't even give that kind of perspective. He essentially said, "We'll figure it out because we figured it out in the past." That was 4 or 5 years ago. As a career general manager, you are just about above 500. So to sit here and act like you have it all figured out and you've just gotten unlucky last year or this year is just disingenuous, in my opinion.
I mean, again, we're coming up on 3 years since their last playoff win, which was that great win in Buffalo a few years ago. We're coming up on 4 years since the Super Bowl, right? I mean, it's not like they have all of this success to bed themselves under from the last couple years. It was back-to-back 9-8 seasons, and then it's now a 6-11 season. So you don't exactly have oh wow, we're stacking money. Like it's not good. Things need to change. And I think the moment that kind of summed up the presser was I can't remember, one of the Bengals reporters asked what needs to change. And he
Right.
goes, the record.
Yep.
No shit, the record needs to change. Right? I, I have never played a snap of football in my life, and I probably never will. And I can tell you that the record needs to change. There is so much else that needs to change. There was a great back and forth about the scouting department. Um, Obviously the Bengals, and now this is a well-known fact now, that the Bengals have the smallest scouting department in football. It is not, I don't think, more than 8 people. It may be less than that. The For reference, every other team in the division in the AFC North has more than 20 people on their staff. So it is, in my opinion, at least, this is me talking here. You're handicapping yourself, right? If you see on Twitter, right, there will be these big college football games. There will be, let's say, I mean, we got the college football playoff national championship game coming up next week, but you've got, and actually the Bengals were at one of these recently. Was it the Miami Ohio State game in Dallas? I believe they were at, which there were some great players in that game that we'll talk about plenty over the next few weeks. But for example, like Texas Tech BYU in Lubbock, right, was a game that happened this year. There was a laundry list of NFL teams there. Bengals weren't there. You look at big SEC games, big Big Ten games, unless a game is in Pittsburgh, which the Bengals were at Pitt Notre Dame, or Columbus, Ohio State's in their backyard, you just don't see Bengals scouts at very many college games. Now, yes, you can go get the film and you can watch the film whenever, right? It's more about the fact that it really isn't because I don't think they don't want to be there. It's because they don't have the bodies. And it's just for me, it just feels like another just pit of laziness they've fallen into a bit where these teams are going and they're putting faces to names and they're watching things happen in person when I think you just lose some of that if you're the Bengals. So that's a whole nother discussion. We could probably do a whole video on that. Um, in terms of the whole press conference, I agree with Ayden that it was kind of like, of the 63 minutes, about 50 of them were just kind of word salad, right? Like there was a lot of me talking like this and droning on and talking about, I mean, I can't even tell you the amount of times I heard the word motivated, the amount of times I heard the word disappointed, right? And like
Collaborative effort.
it's all
I
stuff
mean,
like I get it, right? These people are media trained beyond belief, right? Nobody knows how to talk to the media better than de facto GMs. So, when you have a situation like that, it becomes where how much meaningful stuff you're going to get. There was some meaningful stuff. I think again, that big point is that there is acknowledgement that things need to change. My big question is how much is really going to change? I'm still not particularly convinced that a lot of things are going to change. I hope I'm proven wrong, but I just don't see it.
yeah, and I think one of the main things that people like to point out with that press conference, and he didn't give a lot away like we expected. He kept everything close to the chest. He was, I think, receptive to the idea of adding pass rush help. That was like the one tangible thing when he was talking about defensively, what can improve. He says that he's a guy who always values the trenches. Um, I don't know, given his track record, but you think about the move they made for Trey Hendrickson, and it seems like he wants to bulk up that unit, which I think caused a lot of issues for this Bengals defense throughout the season. So it was little things like that that gave you a little bit of hope, I think.
Yeah.
And I think another telling point of the conversation was him talking about how they were in a lot of late game situations, a lot of one
No
score
worries.
games, a lot of very winnable games, and it's coming down to execution and technique on the field, and that's why they can't get it done. And someone did follow it up and said, "Is that a coaching issue?" To which he said, "No, it just comes down to guys making plays." So it seems like he was almost there, like ready to maybe talk about some of the transgressions that a lot of fans have with this team specifically in crunch time, but it seemed like he didn't want to go fully there yet.
Yeah, I agree. And a lot of that, unfortunately, I just don't think there is a point where you can really say some of that stuff to the media. Like, it's just not, you could be the most open GM of the world and you're not going to say that stuff. So,
Right.
again, like, I think it was good for him to go up there, right? There was some stuff, but again, it just kind of feels like my biggest takeaway is I think that most of the people in that building think that they're a Super Bowl contender now still, which they're not.
Right.
Like, there's a lot of work to do this
We
offseason.
said
And
that
look,
last week. They just have to be honest with themselves when they're doing
look,
self-evaluation.
not a single coach was fired this offseason, which you can gripe about. They're gonna look at the last few weeks where the defense definitely looked a lot better against worse teams, and they're gonna be like, oh, well, they turned the corner. Just like last year. Same thing happened last year, right? And now again, I still do have a little bit. I don't know this. Some Bengals fans, I think, have completely given up on Al Golden. I do still have a shred of faith in him. It's very small, but I do have a shred of faith in Al Golden. Um, the problem is you have to figure out the personnel. You can't run Geno Stone out there for 17 games next year. You can't run a bottom five D line out there and expect to win games. So, they're looking, counting on development again, which cross your fingers and figure it out. So.
It did seem from a lot of the conversation, and he didn't want to come out and say it, it felt like, but it seems like through a lot of his dialogue that they want to be more aggressive in free agency. It seemed like that was the case. Now, does that mean that they're going to go splash and spend top dollar on top guys? No. Just get that thought out of your head. But it seems like he wants to be a lot more proactive, and it seems like he recognizes the lack of leadership on that defense and how poorly that contributed to such a young group. He mentioned guys like DJ Turner stepping up throughout the year, and
Should
it
have been an
seems
all
like a guy
pro.
they seem pretty proactive in wanting to sign. And Jay Morrison asked a great question of, have you guys learned from your mistakes of in the past couple of years trying to hold out and wait to the last possible with these guys and how poorly that has worked for you guys? And he said, well, that's only been a couple guys. And it's it's like he just completely ducked that question. But you just hope that that's the case, that with these guys like Dax, with these guys like DJ that Duke spoke very highly of, it seems like he wants to keep those people around. And if that's the case, I just don't see why you don't get it done this offseason.
Yeah, I'm 100% agreement. I think you should lock both him and Dax down this offseason, but that is a huge ask for this front office. So, we'll see. Again, I will say this. I think that they will reach out to both representatives. I think that they'll at least have a conversation. Now, will
Mhm.
that conversation turn into meaningful offers and not classic lowballs? I doubt it. But again, my big thing is I'd love to be proven wrong, right? I haven't been yet. That's kind of where we're at with this front office, right? And I can't remember who was one of the female reporters. They were like going after Duke. Like these questions were
I don't
kind of
know who
pointed.
that I don't know who that was, but Paul did say after the fact there were a lot of people there who are not typically there, which he appreciated, but at the same time, he said he counted himself personally getting talked over at least 10 times,
Oh yeah,
which was pretty frustrating for him. And I think that individual that you're talking about with a very aggressive line of questioning was somebody who typically is not there.
yeah,
Which you can appreciate, because I think it shows them that people care and people want to feel, but at the same time, like you're not going to get anywhere with it, especially with a guy like Duke Tobin, with that line of questioning and that, talking over people is just not, you're not going to get what you want out of that press conference, in my opinion, but I
yeah.
digress.
I mean, it was a little bit of a mishmash press conference. There was a lot of people yapping. There was a lot of things happening. So, we will see. It'll be a very interesting kind of track to follow here over the offseason if there are any meaningful changes made. We saw last year the program changed a lot as they tried to kind of fix the slow start, and they did. And then Burrow got hurt, and everything else went to crap. So, it'll be interesting to see. I will say quickly, Bengals did have a couple of all pros, or excuse me, just the one, Jamar. Second year in a row, first team all pro. I
DJ got
think
robbed. DJ
what
got robbed.
I think DJ Turner absolutely got robbed. Only 3 votes total for DJ Turner, which is shambolic, right? The
Yeah.
thing is, and it's such an unfortunate part about this league, and it's probably the thing that infuriates me the most is it's just name brand value. To be honest, I think Jamar benefited from it a little bit this year. Not that Jamar didn't deserve to be first team All Pro, but when you look at him and when you look at what George Pickens did, very comparable stats. I think Pickens had a very fair argument for first team All Pro. Jamar probably got it because, I mean, when you compare them side by side, I think Jamar had a few more catches. Pickens' average per catch was a little bit higher. Like, I don't think
Pickens did it with one quarterback and Jamar did it with three.
I
So
think
I think that's
that might
part
be
of the
part of the
difference.
difference maker as well. But I think again, it's all about name brand. DJ doesn't have that, unfortunately. Right? I think when you look at what he did, his body of work is absolutely all pro, Pro Bowl worthy. But
Mike
people don't
Clay,
look at that,
I
unfortunately.
I appreciate that DJ Turner is starting to get more national recognition in this conversation as well. Mike Clay, who's an ESPN contributor, extremely smart dude. He's awesome. I follow a lot of his stuff, but he mentioned the fact that he felt like DJ also got snubbed, and he has an incredible list of the games that DJ was a shadow corner in, which was a league high 14 games, and he was a shadow on 85% or more of the perimeter routes. And I'm not going to go through the whole list because we don't have the time for it. But these are the kinds of guys that he was going up against. It was Justin Jefferson, it was JMO, it was Romeo Dobbs, it was DK Metcalf, Roma Dunze, DK twice, Stephon Diggs, Zay Flowers twice, Jalen Waddle, Michael Wilson, etc. And if you look at the numbers, they're not great for these guys because
Mhm.
of how good DJ was. And he mentioned that he was disappointed in his locker clean out and stuff in that conversation. So I hope that that changes in the coming years. I think it will change in the coming years because I just think he's only going to get better.
That's the thing about a guy like Turner, who's got the top end speed to compete with anybody, right? He's got the ability now is starting to catch up with that athleticism. And when you get that, you get elite corner play. And that's what we've seen from DJ. And by the way, over the last 6 weeks of the season, you want to guess who was second in the entire NFL in PFF corner rating? Dax
That would
Hill.
be Dax.
Dax Hill. So again, I think if you're the Bengals, you've got your corners. CTB, who for some reason went to jail, is
Well,
um
it was a reckless driving that happened in, yeah.
too many driving classes in Athens, Georgia, maybe. But just like you've got your two corners of the future, I think. Just lock them
CTB is
down.
an interesting case. I don't know.
I think they should move him to safety.
I
I
think
think you should
no.
give him a shot there.
I don't think that's in the cards for him. I would be interested to see if they want to bring why this camera get so close. I'd be interested to see if the Bengals want to bring him back as like a nickel player who plays a little bit more in the box and less rangy outside corner coverage. Or I'll be interested to see if another team gives him like a 1 year prove it deal. He feels like one of those guys that
Yeah.
is just a prove it deal from a team to get an outside corner.
And the Bengals don't really have kind of that kind of capability for him. Like you saw with Osai this year, where Osai like played plenty enough for that deal, right? I don't know if CTB would be a starting corner on this team next year. In fact, I don't think he would be at all. So again,
I think
I
he could
don't know
fill
if
a role as a
CTB is.
nickel. I think he
Yeah,
could fill a role as a nickel corner, just
I'd love
not
to see.
outside perimeter guy.
I wouldn't hate bringing CTV back. I think that's somebody that needs a little bit of a mental reset. But again, we would have to see, right? That'd be something that is a little bit deeper, I think, into the offseason question. Let's zoom out and talk a little bit about the rest of this division now. Obviously, we mentioned the Steelers got pantsed on national TV yesterday, 30-6. That Houston defense continues to terrorize people. They terrorized Aaron Rodgers. Sheldon Rankins, remember him, old friend? He had a touchdown. Um,
It's
you
just the
know,
most Bengals thing ever.
yeah.
To have some guy who literally played like maybe 2 games for you last year and was absolutely garbage, to go out there and he had an incredible year all year for Houston, and then against Pittsburgh in Acrisure Stadium to have a scoop and score after he pancakes a dude. It's the most Bengals thing. But he killed Renegade. So shout out Sheldon because Renegade probably would have gotten played if they were within, striking distance and waving the towels and all that.
Wave the
So
towels,
at
Cameron.
least he's still
Wave the
doing a little bit of
towels.
help for them in that regard.
Woo! So I think let's before I want to come back to the Steelers, but I want to go to the other two teams first. Um, Obviously, both of these teams are now looking for new head coaches, Cleveland and Baltimore. Two very intriguing, I think, coaching scenarios here. So let's start with Cleveland. They fired Kevin Stefanski. I think both of these firings could have not happened, is what I will say off the jump. I could have seen scenarios where both of these teams rolled to the next season with the same head coach. Obviously, Kevin Stefanski had some great successes early in his Cleveland tenure. The last couple of years, injuries and some just truly awful quarterback play have kind of held Cleveland back, even though they've had some really high level defenses over the last couple of seasons. And, who I think is probably the best defensive player in football in Myles Garrett. They've pretty much kind of wasted his prime, even though Garrett did it to himself. But I think when
I
you
would
look at
argue
the
Myles Garrett's still in his prime. He's a freak. But
Oh no, I,
continue.
I agree. I think he's still in his prime, but he's the one who
They're
just
not
signed a
going.
$180 million contract there when he, quote, wanted to win. So you
Yeah.
don't do winning in Cleveland.
Yep.
Um, I think when you look at this roster and this team, the defense will still be good next year. Any defense with 95 and it's going to be pretty solid. But again, you've got some good pieces along that defense. You probably got a very good high front runner, if not the defensive rookie of the year in Carson Schweisinger. This draft, by the way, for Cleveland was really good. I will tip my cap to Andrew Berry. I think they did a great job. Obviously, before the injury, Quinshon Judkins was playing at a very high level. As a Buckeye, I am glad he succeeded in the NFL. I hope that he continues, and obviously that is a tough injury to work your way back from. It was a nasty one. So hopefully he can get back to full health. They trade down in the first round to get Mason Graham. Obviously, I think they were probably hoping the Jags were a little worse than they ended up being this year. They're probably glad the Jags lost early in the postseason because now that pick is, I think, around pick 24 or 25. Not 100% sure exactly where that pick will be, but it'll be in the mid 20s, so I'll have two first rounders coming in for next year. Obviously, your big question for Cleveland is one question: is quarterback, right? Shador Sanders had him some moments. He had him some plays, but when you look at the underlying stats, they're not pretty for Mr. Sanders, right? They are ugly. So do you, with the, what is it, sixth overall pick, I believe? With the sixth overall pick, Fernando Mendoza is not going to be there. If Dante Moore declares he's not going to be there, do you go for, a third or fourth quarterback in the draft at pick six? Or do you take a wide receiver like a Carnell Tate or a Jordan Tyson? Or when you look back to the head coaching, what else do you think Cleveland needs to fix here in this offseason? Because obviously now they still have not won the AFC North in its current iteration. They've never won the division. That's the question for them. How do they do it? Maybe change their name again.
Yeah. I don't mean to come off as too hyperbolic, or I don't know if this is just my Bengals fandom, but in my opinion, this Cleveland Browns job is the least desirable head coaching opening in the cycle, and I don't think it's particularly close. I just think you have so many headaches going on in Cleveland that if I were somebody who was established, I probably just wouldn't want to deal with. Mainly, you think about the quarterback position, you're probably stuck with Sanders for another year. And if you're a guy coming in as like a prove it guy, just take, I guess, Dan Pitcher as an example. He interviewed for this
Mhm.
job. Dan Pitcher's a guy who I don't think can afford to wait another year and be like, I'm going to pass on this Cleveland job and wait for a better opening. I just don't think he's that prominent of a name to do so. So he takes this Cleveland job and he has to deal with Sanders for a year, this offensive line that was abhorrent this past year, a wide receiving core that is barren, a defense that is solid but aging a little bit. So I like.
Denzel Ward, I will say that Denzel Ward's not getting any better, right? And
Yeah,
I think Denzel Ward is a phenomenal football player, but I
yeah,
think you're looking like this now. Right? And
yeah,
it's not really even a knock on him. It's just he played at such a high level for so many years, and again, he's got a long history of concussions as well. You have to look at that, and you have to look at the rest of this defense where you do have again some high ceiling guys. We didn't even mention Harold Fannin from that draft. I think he deserves a mention. Really good pickup in the third round. He played a lot, had some big moments. Um, I agree with you. I don't think this job is super desirable. I know Cleveland is looking very outside the box on this search. They've interviewed a wide range of candidates. Obviously, they've interviewed John Harbaugh. We'll get to Baltimore in a second. But
It feels like
I just like if you're Cleveland, like what do you do? You still,
you have to
I know
wait.
this is
I think you literally just have to wait until Watson's off the
you're
books.
he is still on the books for next year.
Yeah.
Guess he could well be your week one starter. I know that'll fill Cleveland fans with delight, but he is 80 million plus dollars in dead money if you cut him. You can't cut him. And you can blame your owner for that, right?
It, that's another reason why
It will go down as the
it's a
worst
one and done situation
contract.
with
I think it
Cleveland.
will go down as the worst contract in NFL history.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I
And
think
you
it's
can't
particularly
justify
close.
the quarterback class coming out this year is not good enough to justify a third
No.
quarterback being taken in a top six pick. So you're just you're stuck. It just
And you
feels
win
like
those last two games, right? I think if they had lost against Pittsburgh and against Cincinnati late in the season, they would have picked second.
Mhm.
So, you might have had a shot at a Dante if that's where you wanted to go.
Which
So,
it's
or
also
you could have maybe tried to package a pick and go up one, try and get that first pick, try and get Mendoza, who's, probably going to be the first overall pick. We'll see. So, it's going to be a tough offseason in Cleveland. We'll see what they do with the head coach. Maybe this time next week they have a head coach. Let's go to Baltimore. Let's go to them. And this was probably the biggest shocker of the coaching cycle, was Baltimore firing John Harbaugh. 17 seasons in Baltimore. They won a Super Bowl back in what year was it? 2010, 2009, something, 2012, something like that, around that time. Um, he obviously had that Super Bowl win, but
2011. I
really,
thought it was 2011.
well, I think you're right. I might have missed it. When you look at really, I think this is more focused on the last few weeks or few years, I think, of John Harbaugh's tenure. You nail a draft pick, A plus 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 with Lamar Jackson at pick 32, right? He sits, he develops, he turns into a multiple time MVP caliber player, and they have won three playoff games with him, I think, in those years, right? And yes, Lamar has gotten hurt for a couple of seasons, got hurt in 21, got hurt in 22. Um, but when you have a quarterback like that, when you have so many, I mean, you count the Pro Bowls on this roster, count the All Pros on this roster, I can see why Baltimore had enough because they're not getting enough out of this team, right? With so much talent, with so much capability, and they haven't even sniffed the Super Bowl. They haven't even gotten there. The closest they got was 23. That was their year. I said it umpteen times that year, is that was their year. That was a phenomenal team. They were well-rounded top to bottom, and Kansas City did the thing that they do to almost everybody, right? And they missed out. They had a chance at home to go to the Super Bowl where they would have faced off against San Francisco and they would have had a real shot to win. And they didn't. They blew it. So, it's a tough pill to swallow if you're Baltimore. And now I think if you're Baltimore, you've got an interesting decision to make at head coach because you've got a quarterback in Lamar Jackson who I think I don't want to say disgruntled. I don't think that's the right term, but maybe just kind of a little gruntled. Does that make sense? Does that make any sense at
You just
all?
invented a word.
I think I did, but you know what? I'm okay with it because I think Lamar Jackson's probably a little frustrated with how things have gone in Baltimore over the last couple of years.
And before we stray too far, disgruntled means that you're not happy with the situation. You didn't invent a word. Gruntled means
Oh,
you are.
gruntled is a word? Oh wow.
Gruntled means you're like pleased with the situation. Dis,
Also, he's not. Also, he's no.
yeah,
He is
he is
disgruntled.
disgruntled. The dis means that he is not happy. The gruntle part is the happy part of that word. A little bit
Okay.
of yeah, a little bit of English
How
class.
about that? There you go.
But anyway, I keep going. I got what you meant though.
So I don't know. Will Baltimore look to hire? I mean, John Harbaugh was actually a special teams coordinator when he was initially hired. Will they look to go offensive? Could they look to hire a Mike McDaniel potentially, who was let go in Miami? Would they look to hire maybe like a Jesse Minter from from the Chargers, who, by the way, has been requested to be interviewed by all 8 teams in this coaching cycle. So I have a feeling Jesse Minter is not going to be the defensive coordinator in LA much longer, especially after LA now exits the playoffs that lost to New England this past weekend. I think you've got some tough questions to answer on this defense as well.
Yeah.
They had real issues early in the year. What the heck do you do with Nnamdi Madubuike? Um, Neck injury that knocked him out all season. Does he ever play a game again? I don't know. Um, Kyle Hamilton was banged up really all year long, was kind of in and out all year long. Roquan Smith had injury issues early in the season. They gotta find another corner. Marlon Humphrey, not a good year. Nate Wiggins is a solid player, but not a good year for Marlon Humphrey on the outside. And again, they kind of need that exterior, that outside pass rusher. They've kind of lacked that for a long time. They traded away Odafe Owe. You've got David Ojabo there. They've kind of had a mismatch of guys, and they haven't really been able to get that. Honestly, all the 3 other teams in the AFC North have had that elite edge rush guy. You think TJ Watt, you think Myles Garrett, you think Trey Hendrickson. Baltimore's just never had that guy. Matabuke was great on the inside, but they haven't had that outside guy. Might be something for them to look for in the draft. And then offensively, you've got quite possibly the best running back over the last decade in the NFL, and Derrick Henry, and they just refused to use him in key moments. And I think that was part of the reason why Harbaugh was let go, was because, again, you Derrick Henry, all world, right? One of the best in the business. And he was off the field. Multiple big games just went ghost. And he wasn't hurt. They just didn't play him in the big moments.
I just think the Ravens have such a roster construction issue. I think they have built their roster and they have been exceptional in getting blue chip talent at positions. You think Lamar, you think Kyle Hamilton. These guys are like top of the game, best player at their position, and they've been incredible at that. But Baltimore has not been good at building out the edges of their roster, those marginal decisions that you have to do, where they're trying to skate by with these B players. Um, and it just hasn't really worked for them. Edge rusher is a great example of that. They don't want to invest that much capital into a premier edge rusher position, which I think you can get by with given the kind of talent that you have on that defensive roster, specifically in that blue chip talent of guys like Kyle Hamilton. But those marginal moves that you're making have not been good enough for you to get in a position to succeed and get to that next level. And I don't know how that changes relatively quickly for this team. And I think
Is
that's
that
kind
even
of
a coaching issue?
that I don't think so. And that's
That's
kind of the
the,
point I'm trying to make is
yeah,
like I'm not the biggest fan of moving on from John Harbaugh because I think on the surface, Baltimore, I mean, they are an exceptional team. They have a ton of talent, but I don't think they're good enough as a complete whole roster of a football team to compete at that Super Bowl level that they want to be at. And that's why, and especially when you look around and look at the candidates for head coaches this year,
not a
none
great
of them,
cycle, is it?
none of them feel like an obvious upgrade to John. And so that was kind of the confusing part for me for Baltimore. And I'll be interested to see where they go next. I don't think a guy like Mike McDaniels fits Baltimore culturally.
I
I,
agree.
I just it doesn't feel right. I think a defensive guy like a Jesse Minter or a Brian Flores makes a lot more sense, and I wouldn't be surprised if they go that direction.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're in a weird spot, Baltimore. Really weird
They are.
spot. So,
Yeah.
real quick, we only got a few minutes left, but let's quickly touch on Pittsburgh. What do you do in Pittsburgh? I mean, the standard is the standard, but the standard isn't winning Super Bowls anymore. Mike Tomlin has now matched our old buddy Marvin Lewis for the most consecutive playoff losses in a row with 7, right? Not exactly a list you want to be on. Um, they had a home playoff game against a good Texans team, right? Didn't go well, right? They found a way against Baltimore, right? There's a lot of worlds where that game doesn't go their way, right? But they found a way to get it done. Credit to them. Um, but if you're Pittsburgh, I mean,
Can I
The
just
Aaron
say, do
Rodgers,
you care if I go first?
there's so many questions about this roster.
And I don't think Mike Tomlin is the issue.
Wait,
Um,
hold on. I think Tomlin just got fired.
oh no, Shefty.
I'm seeing in the chat things are happening.
After a historic 19 season run, this was 56
Yep,
seconds
yep.
ago. Mike Tomlin
Wow,
just informed the
live.
team he wasn't fired. He is stepping down as the Steelers
Oh
head coach,
wow,
he says.
wow. How can you do that? We
Um,
only have 4 minutes left.
wow. Okay, well,
Well,
I'm gonna say what I was gonna
go
say
ahead. Go
before this
ahead. Four
information
minutes.
came out. I think Mike Tomlin is a good NFL football coach. I think that Pittsburgh has had to try and have a band-aid solution at the most important position in the National Football League, which is quarterback, ever since Big Ben has regressed. And Mike Tomlin has tried his best to get guys like Kenny Pickett, Duck Hodges at one point,
Hmm.
and Mason Rudolph, and
Mason
now
Rudolph.
42-year-old Aaron Rodgers to win playoff games, and that's just not conducive for winning football games.
Oh
They
my
have
God. What
to
do they
they
do?
have
What do
to
they
find a
do?
long-term solution at quarterback. Otherwise, it's just never going to work.
They tried it. The one time they tried it, they drafted Pickett at it.
Yeah.
You saw how that went.
This is an
So,
aging roster that has obvious flaws. Guys like Cam Hayward aren't getting any younger. Guys like TJ Watt aren't getting any younger. And so they need
do
a
they
full.
finally do they
I
finally
don't
have a
think
tank year
Tomlin's
next
the
year?
issue. I do not think Tomlin's the issue in Pittsburgh.
So, two questions, I guess. We only have 3 minutes. We gotta go quick. Number
Zach Taylor's the
one,
last head coach in the AFC North after this season. Think about that.
um,
Sorry to
number
yell.
one, number one, does Mike Tomlin get another job somewhere else? I think he might. I
Yes.
think it's a possibility.
Yes.
Number two, does Pittsburgh finally just blow it up?
They have to. They cannot keep going on in purgatory of these band-aid solution quarterbacks. It's never going to get you to where you need to go. This is a franchise that has 6 Super Bowls in their history. They don't care about just making it into the big dance. That's not what they're in the business for. They're in the business to win Super Bowls, and how they've been going after these past ever since Big Ben retired, whatever that was, 5, 6 years ago, it's been the same thing over and over and
Yeah.
over.
Even the last couple of years of Big Ben were the same way, right?
Right.
You had the same issues because Big Ben was a husk of what he once was. So,
Mhm.
honestly, here's my personal take. I think we'll be seeing Mike Tomlin on like Prime's desk next year, right? Or something like that. Imagine the quotes. He'll be amazing on
He could be a
television.
great TV personality.
Um,
He could be a great.
I I don't know what Pittsburgh does at head coach. We were just talking about how I don't think this is a phenomenal cycle for coaches. I don't know what you do. I,
Eh, I don't
tough,
know.
tough.
I think Brian Flores makes a lot of sense for
I would
Pittsburgh.
hate everything about that.
Why is that?
Well, I would like it from Pittsburgh perspective.
Yeah,
I would
yeah,
hate
yeah.
it from my perspective.
I think Jesse Minter makes a lot of sense for a Pittsburgh perspective. It's similar
Yes.
culture wise and feel wise as like a Baltimore job, in my opinion. That's incredible. I mean, Zach Taylor is the lone survivor. There's all this
And to be
shrapnel.
honest, with how the cycle has gone,
I've been getting absolutely cooked by people who are Bengals fans for saying this. It doesn't make sense for the Bengals to move on for
yeah,
Zach Taylor in this specific moment, in this specific time.
it's insanity. We got to wrap it there. But wow, what a reaction. Mike
Zach
Tomlin
Taylor
out
survives the shrapnel.
Pittsburgh. Zach Taylor's back. We didn't even get to talk about draft prospects. We didn't need to. What an episode. We'll be back next week. Exhale. This has been the Jungle Fever Podcast.